Thank you, and good morning. Today is Monday, September the 9th, 2024. My name is Roxana Gamusio. I am the Executive Director with the Tennessee Athletic Commission. This is our regularly scheduled meeting, and the first item of business that we're going to do is take roll call vote to make sure that we have quorum in order to proceed. Members, thank you for being here, and when I call your name, if you can please make sure to let me know you're here. Mr. Ricky Goodrich. Here. Go ahead and press your button if you could so that we can hear you.
Excuse me, here.
Thank you. Ben Grove.
Here.
Thank you. Dan McGrew.
Here.
Thank you. And Corey Cipolla.
Here.
Thank you. All of our members are here. We will get started here in a second. I do want to introduce everyone to our newest member. Ricky Goodrich is replacing Dr. Christy Halbert, who had served 2 full terms with us. And so Ricky is on board. Welcome, sir. We're excited to have you. Notice of this meeting was posted to the Commission's website and has been since June 13th of 2023. Along with that, we've added the agenda for this meeting to the website since September the 3rd. Members were also sent that agenda ahead of time. If you have no questions regarding the notice, the agenda is on your iPads. If you could let me know if anything needs to be changed. Otherwise, we would need a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. We have a motion by Ben, a second by Corey to accept the agenda as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. None opposed. Next, also an item that was sent to you in advance is the minutes for June 10th. This is the regularly scheduled meeting that the commission had in June. If you have any changes, let me know. Otherwise, that item is on your iPads, just following the agenda from page all the way to page 5. If there are no changes, I do need a motion to accept it on the record.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Ben. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. We have a second by Corey. All those in favor to accept the June 10th meeting minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Thank you. We have a second set of minutes for the members, and I know that Ricky, this was not a meeting that you participated in, but we had a special meeting in June to address requests for some exceptions of our rules. And the minutes for that, for the June 14th meeting, start on page 6 of your iPads. That was a very short meeting. We did it virtually. If you see any changes needed, please let me know. Otherwise, we will also put this on the record and post it to the website.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to accept that.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Ben and a second by our chair, Dan. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Thank you, members. We are on to the director's report for the budget. The information that you have is on page 7. These are financial numbers through June. Some of the members will remember that June closes our fiscal year, but we have 2 entries usually, sometimes 3, to take care of last minute expenses, things that have come in, cost backs, those kind of things. And so we have already received one of the updates. This report shows the program having taken in a surplus of $159,892 for the year. So this was really a good year for the program. We had 2 large events, some media representation, and that, of course, is where the program does receive some extra funds. This is leaving the reserve at $94,415. So I don't expect that number to change a whole lot, but by October, we'll have final fiscal year numbers. And so that is informational only. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jesse Gentry, our attorney for the program, to go over the legal report. Jesse?
Right. All right, we've only got one case in our legal report today. It's case number 2024037951. This is a complaint that was against an official. I'll give you all a minute to read the summary. or if everyone has had a chance to review it, are there any questions? The recommendation for this case is to issue a letter of instruction to this referee based on the changes and procedures for involving the standing 8 count.
No, I think that's a good recommendation personally. I don't think if you got fatigued from the standing 8 count, then you're probably pretty out of shape. Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept that.
And I will also add, as I noted it in the summary, but the person who filed the complaint did want the commission to overturn the decision of the bout and change it to a no contest, which I do not believe the commission would have authority to do so on this case. But I did want to make sure that you all were aware of that, since he has followed up about that, asking for a status update. But that is something, I have looked at how other jurisdictions have handled those types of situations. I haven't come across a situation where I've seen changing it based on an official kind of, Monday morning quarterbacking that decision, saying that it should have gone a different way.
I second.
Thank you. Thank you, members. We have a motion by Ben Grove and a second by Corey Sepola to go ahead and accept the one case on our legal report with legal counsel's recommendation. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Thank you. Jesse, back to you on rules update, please.
All right, we've got 2 updates I'd like to give. First, on the bare knuckle boxing rules, as you all will recall, in June, we had a rulemaking hearing on the authorization for bare knuckle boxing to occur. Those rules have gone through all the steps from being reviewed to the governor's office and are now at the attorney general's office for final approval and review. They've had a few minor edits to some language that I've been going back and forth with them on. But I talked to the attorney general's office last week about making some changes, and they pointed out a minor change they wanted to make to one of the authority sections, where we cite in all of our rules the authority we have to promulgate the rule, and there's an old rule they want to edit some of that. But I anticipate, based on these conversations we've had with the attorney general's office, that as long as there are no other changes, we could see potentially by the end of this month those rules being signed for approval, and if they're approved by the government joint ops committee, potentially by the end of the year, having effective rules for bare knuckle boxing. So those are moving forward. We did want to give an update on that. Unfortunately, it's not the fastest process, but those are going. And then there's one other new update. At the ABC conference earlier this summer, they made 2 changes to the unified rules for mixed martial arts. Specifically, there was a discussion about changing when a fighter was considered down. California in particular had some concerns about MMA fighters placing a hand down to be considered down, so they would limit the types of strikes that fighter could have against them by going down without going to a knee. Essentially, after that presentation, the ABC agreed to change that someone is not considered down until a knee is down, or another part of the body. Hand being down wouldn't be considered down for MMA. They also wanted to change the penalty on that 12-6 elbow. That had been a penalty, I believe, in all jurisdictions due to it being listed in the unified rules for mixed martial arts. And that was being removed. It sounds like some of the jurisdictions will be able to move that pretty quickly, but based on how we have our rules, I've talked to some of the other commissions as well. Some of them specifically outline in their rules as well all of the specific penalties per bout. My recommendation would be to, one, not only be unified with or be aligned with the unified rules and move forward with the rulemaking to make those changes, but potentially as well change our rules so we're not doing this every time they change a penalty or every time they change a definition when someone is down. Instead, what I would propose is that we do a rulemaking to say for penalties and other determinations by the official that they will use the unified rules and standards or another rule set that's approved by the commission. And the reason I put that caveat for the other approved is we've had recently we've had 2 meetings where we've discussed alternative rule sets, both for the Waco or WACO kickboxing, as well as the karate combat. And I just want to make sure that if we were to do something like that, we're saying you will use the unified rules or rules that are already approved by the commission. But I think that would help us be more efficient. So if ABC changes next summer and they remove another type of strike or change another definition, we don't have to go through the year-long process to a rulemaking to implement that. Obviously, if there was a concern though, and the commission said, no, we don't like that the ABC Commission has made this change, we want to still outlaw this in our state, we could have those discussions. But I think for these minor changes like this, and for fairness and efficiency for the fighters, that they, know what the unified rules are, they know what the standards are across state lines, and that Tennessee isn't different. That would be my recommendation, is to just align it with the rule set that's already been approved.
Could you state that rule again about the boxer being down?
Yes. So I believe it's only for mixed martial arts, for MMA, where they had, no, you're, and that's fine. I just wanted to clarify that, because I think that it's something specific that the other jurisdictions mentioned they're seeing in MMA. Did you?
Ben, could you press your, thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, so in MMA, there's been an issue over the last 10 or 15 years where guys will bait people into takedowns by putting their hand down on the mat, and they can't knee them in the head anymore. They can just throw punches at them. So it's basically saying they have to go down to their knees rather than if they just put their hand on the ground, then that's not going to count. They can still knee them in the head then. So they shouldn't put themselves in a bad position like that purposefully to try to play the rules,
So
Ricky, could you press your red button off for me? Thank you. Go right ahead.
So what you're saying, the knee has to be down, not only the knee. What about any other part of the body?
I believe if they were on their bottom, they would still be considered down. The way that they had changed it was anything other than feet or hands on the ground. So if a knee is down, I think that was just the easier example that they gave, because there were some officials who had a concern that the concern that was expressed, at least, was that if someone's just placing a hand down, they're not protecting their head. So if you have someone who's still trying to do those knee strikes to the head instead of, putting a hand up to defend against that, they could still potentially, even though it could be a penalty, they're still being receiving strikes to the head at that point.
Okay, I understand.
I'll be honest, I thought this rule was already changed years ago.
But those were the two examples of the changes that they made as part of the unified rules. And I think, if we align, with the unified rules on that, then that way we're not gonna have to change it if they modify them again in another few months. So if there are no other questions on it, we would just need a motion to approve or authorize a rulemaking going forward. I believe our next meeting is February. When it'll be,
I'm going to check.
I think it's the start of,
Maybe December.
We have one
It should be
December.
December,
Okay.
yeah. I'll give you the date. December 9th.
so that at that meeting, we would essentially be hopefully looking forward to having that rulemaking and moving those changes forward.
Okay, so you need a motion now to accept the unified rules until we're able to make those changes in December?
I would need a motion to authorize the rulemaking and make those changes. I do think, just another aside, when we were at the ABC conference, some of the tribal commissions made a comment about, because they don't have the same rulemaking procedures, that they would hold off on implementing some of these changes closer to November of this year, so that way the states would have time to catch up. I do think if there was a larger MMA organization or someone expressed concern that all of their fighters, for example, were training with the understanding that these changes had already been in effect, we could use our waiver procedures to allow them to use those until our rulemaking is official. So if there was someone that had that concern, we could modify that, because I think the concern that was expressed at the ABC conference was that if some states were allowing that 12-6 elbow coming down, some were not, do you have fighters prepared for that, officials preparing for that, and that everyone should be on the same page. So if that was a concern of a promoter or a fighter, or anyone trying to hold an event, we would certainly be able to look at that and make sure that we could be consistent with what they've trained, especially until we've made this change officially in the rule. But we would just need a motion today to authorize that rulemaking.
I make a motion to authorize that particular rulemaking.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Motion by Dan, a second by Ben to authorize Jesse to go ahead and prepare the rules so that they will align with the unified rules. And we will most likely be able to hold that on December 9th. It should give us plenty of time. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, Jesse? Thank you for this work. I think it'll make it simpler on everyone, obviously, as they come to Tennessee, which is what we want them to do. We'll start new business here in a minute. Just a quick note. I think the members that have been here for a while, Ben and Dan, you'll remember, we always take a minute to make sure at the end of the meeting that anyone that's participating in person or remotely has a chance to ask questions or opine. I had forgotten to add that to our agenda always. We've always done it on the record, but it's going to be on the agenda ahead of time as well. So we'll make sure when we get done to have a minute for that. We've got under new business. Dan, I'll turn it over to you. You and I talked a little bit about the desire, and I think at a previous meeting, we talked about the desire for uniforms or uniformity or a professional look for our referees and judges. So I'll turn it over to you, sir, so you can guide the commission members.
Thank you. Yes, I would also like to ask all the commission members, if you haven't, be sure to go to some of these events, MMA, boxing events, if you can. It's really an eye opener, and you really learn some really important things. Our executive director is so great in setting it up. You just tell her that you want to attend any bout or MMA event in the state, anywhere, and she will contact the promoter and get the okay for you to go. I've never been turned down yet, but they're very gracious, and she's very, very kind in doing that for us. And just to go and sit there each side or ringside and watch what goes on, and you learn a lot. I was a pro referee years ago, and I know kind of how things work, but things change, and with new ways of doing things. But it's good to know what you're talking about a lot of times when these things come up here on the agenda sometimes. But it's an eye opener, and it's really a learning process. I learn something new each time that I go to one of these events, and it's fun too. I enjoy it. I think we all enjoy it, or else we wouldn't be here right now. But one thing, as far as Roxanne was talking about the new business, the dress for the officials, the referees, and the judges, I think that there needs to be some type of uniformity. I know we don't have a lot of money yet to, provide shirts or blazers for our officials, which, well, they're not state employees anyway. But I think if we start out with maybe just a patch, athletic commission patch, that we can have either the promoters or the individuals themselves purchase. It shouldn't be any more than $3, $4 probably, a patch, if it was designed for them to wear on their shirt or jacket.
I think we could probably do it easier than that. We could just make a like a file, like a PNG file, just a picture basically, and they could just have it put on their shirt by whoever the printing company is for them. Because a lot of them do like the dry fit t-shirts for the referees, and then they can just literally take it someplace and for $10 or $20 get that printed on there.
Well, that's why, I wanted to talk about this, because I've noticed that some of the events, some of the referees in their dress don't look very professional. There was one that I saw had his shirt out, hanging down. You don't want to look like you just came in from the bus station to referee an event. We're growing. This organization is growing. We're getting a lot more media coverage. There's a lot of the bouts that are streamed, and people from all over the country are looking at Tennessee, and when they see somebody up there that's plodding around with their shirt out down to their knees, that doesn't look professional, and it doesn't look good on us. Now, this is something I guess we may need to take up at the rules meeting, but have a rules on the dress of the officials. Shirt tucked in, clean, pressed. It'd be great if it could all be one color, either white or blue, bow tie or no bow tie or whatever, but whatever it is, it should be professional looking, and they should, adhere to those rules. Now, when I was talking about a patch, I was talking with Roxanne, and you were saying that someone could possibly develop a patch. Is that?
So General Services has for us Tennessee logo or Commerce and Insurance shirts with our logo for the state, the TN logo. So they do have the manpower to kind of customize a patch, and probably, they would charge the artwork, but I don't think it would be anything out of the ordinary if we decided to go with a patch, if that's what the commission decided to do. But to your point, Ben, on the shirts that they wear, I don't know then that the patch on those can be sewn or ironed if they're the dry fit.
Yeah, I don't know that all of them do, but like I've seen referees wear polos. I've seen referees wear the dry fit shirts, both. So the dry fit, a patch would be very awkward on it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think either one of like a polo would be easy to print
Right.
on too.
And it would probably go in line with our chair's position of them looking professional if we went with a polo. And so in our rules, we do have attire. It does not touch on the judges or referee, but to that section, I believe we would be able to add through the rule process the attire for referees and judges, starting with a professional look. Tucked in is an easy way to word it. And then whether it's a patch, but start maybe with the polo shirt, if that's the consensus, that at least that then does give some type of a sharper look.
Right. Either way, either a polo shirt or a Oxford type fitting collared shirt, whatever we decide, it should be, there should be some uniformity, and it should look neat and, professional. That's what I'm saying.
Do we have the authority to check, put that out? I mean, make these people dress right?
We would have the authority to do a rule that would require, the dress of the officials or judges. I do think something we would want to explore if we're looking at a patch or something that we would send out. The easiest way to do that would probably be when they obtain the license, since we mail out a license. We could send it out with that. We would have to look with General Services, and then certainly, if there's a fee for that, we'd want to look. Do we need to increase our fee to cover that cost? Because even if it's only a few of them, that does still add up over time. I do wonder if we would get pushback from, especially some of the larger promoters. I'll just give you an example. There was a large MMA fight a year ago where even, the water bottles that were on the table was something where, because they're controlling the branding of things. They wanted a certain look, and they wanted people to, okay, we'll take that off because that has a logo on it. And I do think that some of the larger organizations dictate what their officials would wear. So I don't know if we want to make it broad to say, you will wear professional attire, which could be, a collared shirt tucked in, ironed, outline what that looks like, or a patch, kind of do it as an either or, maybe just to give some of that flexibility. I also think it's worth noting it's more common in boxing matches to see, the professional collared shirt. In MMA, it seems more common to see the dry fit or the t-shirt, especially long sleeve. There's a lot of people who have long sleeve type shirts like that, I think, for blood purposes. And I don't know with bare knuckle what people will wear during that as well. So I don't know if it's something we want to look sport specific to say, in this you should wear this, and this you should wear this. Make it more broad to say, it needs to be professional and kind of outline what that looks like, or to dictate, because some of these promoters, they only have one event in Tennessee per year, if that, maybe every other year. Some of our officials are here on a weekly basis doing fights. So they're probably more likely to say, I'll get a uniform that matches that. Some of the larger promoters probably want to keep the same between each state and each bout. since they want that unified look on television.
I think Dan's biggest issue, correct me if I'm wrong, is just, you just want them to be professional,
Right.
right? Like, it's
Right,
not,
right,
like, I like
exactly.
the creativity and like, do your own thing, like, pick your own colors. Like, if everybody in your organization that's working there is wearing the same color outfit or the same branded outfit, that looks great. Like, we don't want to say you have to wear a referee shirt like you're in the NFL. But like you said, you don't want them to be disheveled and untucked and look like they just came from a pig, like a barbecue or something, you
Mhm.
know?
I have seen mostly, I've seen this in boxing matches, not so much in MMA matches. In MMA, the referees are generally in black and, black pants, black shirt, shoes, gloves, and they look professional. But I have mostly seen the ones that didn't look so professional in some of the boxing matches. And you may have a judge sitting at ringside with a ball cap on his head, which doesn't look very professional, or with a backpack on or whatever, I mean, that doesn't look professional. Now, reason I was talking about the patch can go on a shirt or it could go on a blazer, they're at ringside, perception is a big thing. And if the people in the audience see this guy sitting there and he's looking professional, even if he may not know what he's doing, he looks like he does. I mean, really. But hopefully he does. But you have to put yourselves in the position of the people that they're watching, and you have to think about they're representing the state of Tennessee. These people, what they're saying. So if they say they look sharp, they look like they know what they're doing, whatever. It goes a long way. But it's up to the commission here, what we decide on. Are we going to go with a patch, or is it going to be just specific to boxing or MMA or both, or whether or not we go with a shirt? Like I said, I know we don't have the money to, pay for every official to have a shirt. But that's why I said we could start out with a little patch, and they could purchase that patch, or it could be put into when they renew their license, that extra $3 or $4 for a patch. One patch for them, they could probably buy more, but for them to put it on their shirt or jacket.
I think they made a good point though, like if the UFC comes and they don't want to do that,
Right.
or else they're not coming to Tennessee, like, are we gonna have a meeting just to give them a waiver for a patch?
I think we could make special exceptions for big events such as that, where they bring their own officials. And generally they do. The UFC, they'll bring their own officials and they get licensed here for the state of Tennessee. But the UFC also, I think they have standards in which what their officials wear. And as long as it is professional looking, whether it be coats or blazers or whatever, polo shirts, I think they all generally look very professional. And that's the main thing that I'm concerned about, is the look of it.
Maybe we just have some broad standards that are, like, we have people on site, so maybe the commission members, not the commission members, but what's that? Yeah, the
inspector.
inspectors that are on site, maybe they can uphold a standard to approve or disapprove of attire.
Well, yes, you don't want them to have to tell somebody there at ringside, you can't do this bout because you're not dressed properly. I mean, they need to know that beforehand, the dress,
How far ahead of time do the inspectors meet the referees?
So that's a really good question. I think at this, if the rule included attire for them, and Jesse's wonderful, he'll kind of draft that general language that covers looking professional, sharp and professional would be kind of that driving force. the field inspectors, knowing that rule, they meet usually the day before for the weigh-in, right? And then the day of course, is the pre-meeting, but that's probably by then, they're all already there. So Katie's communication to the promoters, all of our communication would be early on. Your judges and referees must look professional. Here's the rule, however it's worded. And then the inspectors would, reiterate that. The question I posed is, what if the referee shows up not looking professional? Is it easy to just tuck in the shirt and does that cover it? Or is that just not going to go? And that would be the difficult part is, the field inspector having to make that call. But I think keeping the language very clear, yet broad enough to where when the bigger events or the events that have their logo and they all match the same color and they have their branding, they're going to want to do that. They're not going to want to put our badge on. Unless it's like a badge, an ID, but that doesn't take care of the looking professional. So I think if it's broad enough, then the inspectors have some guidance.
Would it be possible to make the punishment instead of saying, hey, you can't go on, instead for it to be like, we're definitely giving you a fine for, like the promoter a fine for not having your employees be professional?
I think that was the direction we would probably go, is that it would be a disciplinary action against the promoter. We would probably have to word it so it's a responsibility of the promoter to make sure that the officials and the judges are properly dressed, but also make it something where the officials and the judges themselves also can be accountable for it. Because I do think that's a twofold issue. And I think, there's some level where if we find the same promoter multiple times for officials not being well dressed, they're probably going to clean that up on their end. But at the same time, if the official is getting dinged for, not properly being dressed as well, I think that they'll change it. But I mean, it could be something easy where it's, the day before, someone says, can my officials wear this type of an attire? Or, our inspector is saying, hey, just a reminder, tuck your shirt in, or, making those types of suggestions. But I do think if it's more of an issue where they're showing up in, stained clothing or something that obviously looks unprofessional, that's probably, it would have to come through a disciplinary action.
And if we are going, I know we've discussed before having like a qualification test or like some sort of certification for the referees. If they go through a process like that, then that could be part of the test itself, is like, this is what you're supposed to look like when you show up. So then they could lose their license for not.
I think possibly, like if someone, the first offense may be a verbal warning. They do it again, maybe a written reprimand. And then to third time, maybe a fine or something similar to that. I happen to know that we're getting some new officials. I see some different faces, coming in. So, oh, he must be new. She must be new. And I know that some of them are traveling to some of these other ABC tournaments or WBO, WBC, and they're getting training, and they're training there, and they're learning a lot of new things that I think that we have been lacking as far as experience and that they've had here, in Tennessee. And I think our officiating is going up. It's going way up because you get a lot of these newer officials coming on. They're eager, they're wanting to learn, they're wanting to do a great job, and the professionalism is just going sky high. So I think we're on the right track. We're growing, and I think the promoters are doing a good job in bringing matches in. You don't see those many matches now that guys are overmatched, first round knockouts. You don't see a lot of that anymore. They're doing better. We're getting on television, streaming, and I think that along with all of this information, a lot of this publicity that we're getting, we have to keep up and look professional and look sharp, so these other states can say, wow, Tennessee, they're on the ball, looking good. So I just, whatever, we decide as far as, the dress, as long as it is professional.
Who has the authority to tell a guy to get squared away? If he had his shirt tell out, the inspector? Do we tell the inspector? Do we say,
Inspector has that.
oh, and he works for the state also?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I
He
think-
would be the one to do it.
I think we could have our inspector, and depending on how we draft it procedurally, I wouldn't see an issue with an inspector, reminding a referee, especially if it's something minor, like tucking a shirt in. That's something where if we want to put that in the rule, and we can talk to our inspectors, they do a great job. Especially with some of these events where we've had alternative rule sets, they were very eager and excited to learn about, the differences and what it looked like. So I think that we could tell them or inform them that they have the authority to, remind a referee if they looked disheveled or something that would be a quick fix. But I do think most of it would have to come through some type of written warning or after the fact disciplinary action. Especially, if you don't have another shirt at the venue, it makes it difficult, even if the inspector says, hey, that's not a professional shirt. They could, right, that's what I say, they could warn them at the event and say, hey, this isn't a professional shirt. Do you have something else to change into? If they say no, I don't think we're going to stop about because of that. But I think that's an after the fact. We send a warning, a written warning, or we send some type of a fine to them for that.
And I think it also should cover not only the referees, the judges, but also the timekeepers also.
I'd want to minimize the amount of warnings we do, though. If we're going to make a high standard, like we
Right.
should just uphold the standard.
I think my recommendation would be, I like the idea of a patch because I like consistency. I think the easiest way, until we know more of the way we would get those developed, recouping costs on those, what they would look like. The easiest way to get this moving forward quickly would be to outline the rulemaking to say timekeepers, judges, officials will dress professionally during weigh-ins and about. We could say weigh-ins as well if we wanted. Essentially anything that's going to be televised, basically, but weigh-ins and about, including a collared shirt or approved outfit by the commission. We could leave it like that, so it's a little bit more broad, and then that way, if we want to ask them ahead of time, what are your officials wearing, and if they say, oh, they're coming in tank tops, we could say, hey, that's not appropriate. But if they said, oh, they're wearing black slacks, a black shirt, because that's pretty common with MMA, all black, so great, that's fine. If we know that they're wearing a suit, that's fine as well. With the judges and the timekeeper, it'd be tough, I think, to know that ahead of time. The officials shouldn't be a problem. We should be able to get that information from the promoter, or at least make sure the promoter is telling all of their folks, hey, if you're coming to this is what you need to be wearing. This is what I want you to wear something professional. I want you in a collared shirt. I want you in, all black, whatever that attire is.
Yeah, they can put it in their contract
Right.
easily.
We would just need a motion to include that with the rulemaking. I think we can still explore the patch. I think that's a good idea. It just might take us a little bit more time to figure out with general services what that all looks like. But at the very least, if we wanted to start implementing this, I think by December, we could include this with the rulemaking that we want to try to get moving forward.
So we should make a motion on whether to look into, how did you,
I think a motion to include authorization for a rulemaking for professional dress for judges, timekeepers, and officials.
all right, I make a motion that we adopt such rules until our meeting in December about the dress for the judges, referees, timekeepers, and referees. So moved.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by our chair, Dan McGrew, and a second by Richie Goodrich. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. We've got, Jesse has quite a bit of work to do. I will look into the patches and find out how realistic that is, what the cost is. If there's a way for us to order them, for the promoters to order them, and they may be able to, because right now you can order Tennessee stuff through the main website for tn.gov. So if it can work that way, that may not be a bad idea to have as well. So that's a really good idea. Members, I have nothing else. Any other questions, things?
I was wondering if you got any information on the slap fighting.
I don't have any further information. I do think where maybe I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. if there was an organization that was interested in bringing slap fighting or something similar, I think we could consider it potentially through a waiver request. So I would recommend, if there was a promoter that was interested in holding a slap fighting contest, that we discuss whether or not a waiver through MMA would be appropriate.
So the reason I brought that up is because that's what Dana White wants, so. I don't know, maybe I have somebody that can get in touch with him. I know
Well-
a few people that know him.
And I think the question would be, and this is a question for you all to ponder, would we want to create another similar to what we do with bare knuckle? Would we want to create another similar chapter of rules for something like slap fighting to make that specific? Or is this something where we would want to consider it more similar to the way we did karate combat, where we went through the waiver process, considered it an MMA event, and allowed it to proceed that way? Because I think the question would be, if we say that slap fighting is a regulated activity that could occur through a waiver through MMA, then that's probably the easier way to do it. If we said it is not MMA, then the question is, does it proceed without commission involvement, similar to professional wrestling or some of that like armored combat, that some of these other organizations that we've said this doesn't have commission involvement because it's not MMA, it's not boxing. So I think that those are kind of the two different ways we look at it. Do we look at it and say slap fighting is not combat sports that's regulated and it would proceed outside the scope of us? Or should we say it does proceed? And if so, we would probably say it's not boxing. I think that that's an easier answer, not kickboxing as well, but does it proceed under MMA? Do we have to look at it under those types of regulations and set it up that way? But I think the first step would be, if there is an organization interested, specifically if it is through UFC or Dana White with Power Slap, I think we would want to get in contact with them, look to see what their rule set is for that and how it fits in our definition of MMA, and make that determination of, does this proceed with a waiver?
Sounds fair.
Okay. Let me make sure. Dana, do you have anyone that is on Teams that has a raised hand maybe that we're not able to see?
No.
Okay. Members, we don't have anyone here either. So as far as I believe our meeting can be adjourned, I'll leave that up to you unless we have any other questions.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Dan. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I'll go with
I'll second the
Ben. I'll
motion.
second. All those in agreement to end the meeting. It is 2:45. Please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Thank you very much, members. We are off the record.